Okay, I'm recording this while I'm taking a walk, and hopefully the sound on this is acceptable. And I know I said I wasn't going to do this while walking. I get that, but today I feel like I need to do it while walking. I don't know, when I was trying to do it while sitting. Sometimes you got to podcast while walking. And the only thing that's freaking me out a little bit is that there are other people. I'm walking around the neighborhood where I live in right now. It's currently a little after 8 a.m. on Thursday, May 6th, 2021. I want to establish that there's, in case I'm framed for murder. That's the first thing that popped into my head. But I mean, I could have recorded this at any time. There's no way to prove that I recorded this when I recorded this. Maybe there is. Maybe they can go online and maybe they can go. I sound like I'm 80. Maybe they can go online and maybe they can use one of those computer things to prove my innocence. It was the one-armed man, and that's a difference. Oh, look at that. I just stepped in dog poo. And these are new shoes. And I just stepped in dog poo. Who's not cleaning up their dog poo? How are they not doing that? This is an upscale neighborhood. I'm not bragging. I live in the back of a garage in an upscale neighborhood, but still I'm in a garage. I don't, I walk around this neighborhood, but I don't belong in this neighborhood. Oh, it's really gross what I just stepped in. This is what happens when you walk a podcast. These are the hazards. I'm now going to try to drag my shoe in the grass. And there's more dog poop. Perfect. This is the perfect beginning to a perfect day. And I keep sniffling. I don't mean to do that. That's really affecting. Maybe I can use one of those computers to edit out the sniffles. Sound like a perfect human being that never has sniffles. Maybe I can do that. They have technology that can do that, don't they? Don't they, Jimmy? I don't know why he's an old, vaguely Southern man, but that's the voice I feel like doing today, Jimmy. Maybe they have one of those contraptions, one of those dang blasted contraptions. So here's how I'm freaking myself out this morning. Lately, whenever I, for lack of a better term, ejaculate. I think that really is the best term I can use. I don't want to use anything more crass than that. Whenever I do that, I'm finding that there's a little bit of pain afterwards. It's probably my prostatitis acting up again. But I'm freaking out about it, and I don't want to go to the doctor. I probably should. I was told I should check it every year. It's been 2 now since I've checked it. But they do an ultrasound on my balls. They do a ball ultrasound. And I've been going to the same doctor every year, and the same woman does the ultrasound. And it's very strange to know the same person who does my ball ultrasound. To the point that she sees me and she smiles, and it's not a sexual thing when she smiles. It's more of a, how you doing? It's good to see you again. Like I'm going in for a haircut. I'm going in for a ball scan. It's my yearly ball scan. And I go in and, we talk politics. I said, do you think the new healthcare plan is going to really work out for people? As she's using and she's using one of those advanced computers to check on my boys downstairs. And it's just, I never thought I would have that kind of again, this is non-sexual. I want to restate that. Totally, there's nothing going on. It's purely a clinical situation, but I never thought I would have that kind of familiarity with another human being that wasn't someone I was in a relationship with. Not to say that I want to find a relationship with somebody who can also scan my balls just at home. That's not something I'm into as a kind of foreplay. I'm too busy being afraid of death. But I haven't been there in 2 years, and whenever I don't go for a long period of time, I freak out and I think, oh, what if something's going on down there? And I don't know why. They've never been able to cure this prostatitis completely. I was on antibiotics and it got better, but it never went away. And it kind of gets worse and gets better. And it's the thing is, it's not like it's hugely painful. It's not like, oh my God, I'm doubling over in pain. But it's just painful enough for me to go, is this the end of my life? It's concerning. Like, I don't like when there's, something minor that's going on. Any minor pain, I'm like, this isn't right. There's an issue here. This shouldn't be doing this. And I guess I have to get used to the fact as I get older that there are going to be pains that are always there. And I just have to get used to that. That's what it means to be getting older. That's what aging is. It's chronic pain and only the notion that the sweet release of death will make the pain go away. Unless it doesn't. What if the only thing that's left after death is just the pain? Just an eternity of mild testicular pain. Sorry, I get down. I don't mean to get down like that. I shouldn't be bringing you down. This is supposed to be an uplifting morning podcast. Hi, it's an uplifting morning podcast. Start by taking 2 deep breaths, looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, I can do it. I can have a positive bowel movement this morning. If you dream it, you do it. This is a very nice neighborhood that I could never afford to actually live in a house at this point, unless you share this podcast. Podcast? I don't know what that is. Unless you share this podcast with people and like and subscribe and all that, and we get some listeners going, then maybe one day I can afford to actually live in one of these houses as opposed to rent a corner of the garage. I guess I'm putting it on you. That's what I'm saying. My future is in your hands. Take it or leave it. Maybe you have a friend who said to you recently, you know what I don't have enough of in my life? A middle-aged Jewish man complaining about testicular pain. And you can say, have I got a podcast for you. Let's see how my bottom of my shoe, still dirty. Still dirty. That's gross. This is just perfect. I'm trying to get exercise so that I don't die, so that I prolong my life. Because I only want more testicular pain, not less. Doesn't anybody? Isn't that what we all strive for? As much testicular pain as we can possibly get. I don't mean for the whole first thing to start out. I've spent the better part of 10 minutes talking about my balls. That was not my intention. It was not my intention to do that. And not even in a glamorous way. Then again, I'm not sure there's a glamorous way one can discuss his testicles. Although, let me tell you something. There's that famous guy. There's a famous, I don't know if it's a director or like a set designer, but there's a really famous guy who was known for, whenever they would do it, like a Burger King or a McDonald's commercial, he would come in and he would make the burgers look fantastic. And he specialized in this. This was his thing. They're coming in and there's a way that, doing the lighting and the way it's lit, the way that he prepares the burger for the shoot. And maybe that guy, like if he was paid a lot of money and if he really, really put a lot of energy into it, maybe he could make my balls look beautiful in a commercial. I don't know what the commercial would be for. Maybe it would be for, are you feeling testicular pain? Come to Shlomo's Urology Clinic. At Shlomo's Urology Clinic, we put a face on your balls. Maybe that's who my imaginary sponsor is this week. Shlomo's Urology Clinic. Your balls are in our court. There it is. See, how could you not give this podcast to a friend? The thing that's really hilarious is that I'm talking about this right now. And as I'm talking about this, I am walking through the neighborhood, and there are other people walking through the neighborhood. Kindly old ladies, as I am talking about the walls. I've got the mask, but I'm not wearing the mask. I'm told I don't need to worry about it as long as there's not a lot of crowds, and I'm never in a crowded situation. There's not a lot of people ever around me. I'm not a big crowd person anyway. I was never a fan of crowds. Some people they like the crowds. I don't. I don't need to be in a mosh pit. That doesn't need to happen. That does not need to happen. I just walked by this squirrel that was making a weird eating noise. Looked like he was eating something, but really, really loudly. It kind of feels like it felt a little passive aggressive to me. I don't know anything about squirrels. I'm not a squirrel specialist. I'm not a zoologist who specializes in squirrels. Well, I am a zoologist who specializes in squirrels. And I'll tell you something, my friend. That is not how squirrels behave. Why do I keep giving people a southern accent in this? I'm enjoying the Southern accent today. I think the Southern accent feels to me to be very expressive emotionally, whereas the accent I have, which is a neutral accent, that is the term, the neutral American accent. And I think that it is an accent specifically designed to not be emotional, to hide emotion. Because I think the accent tends to clip vowels. Am I right? I think emotion is revealed on the vowel. So when I think of, the New York accent, I'm from Brooklyn. Like just feels like that accent is much more expressive. I'm from Brooklyn. I'll tell you something, forget about it. Like, Whereas the neutral accent, forget about it. No. Forget about it. It's very, there could be 10 tons of rage, but you never know. Forget about it. Forget about it. Interesting. Boy, that was pretty egotistical of me to say interesting to my own conversation. You might be done by this by now. You might have tuned out. This might be the end of this podcast as we know it. What's that song? It's the end of the world, and we know it. Right? That's from a band. That's a famous band that sings. That's a singing band song. That's one of those singing band songs. That's what it is. Oh, I'm passing by somebody who has an Audi. Audi. Is it Audi or Audi? One of the two. The car. My grandparents used to own an Audi. I always liked that car because they always had Tic Tacs in that car, which was just another way for me to have candy without my parents knowing I was having candy. Oh, no. It's Tic Tac. I want to make sure I have good breath. I'm 4 years old. I don't talk to anyone. I don't care about impressing anybody. But I'm not eating this because there's sugar in it. No. I'm concerned about my first impression that I make when I go to Shlomo's urology clinic. I really want to make a lasting impression. Yeah, maybe that guy who made those commercials could do something with my balls, make them look pretty. He'd be going and going, we are going to have to fix these in post. Yeah, this ain't going to be done. This ain't going to be done with natural lighting. I'll tell you that right now. We're going to need to mask this. You know what? Why don't we take a hamburger and put it in front of them? That's the best way to photograph these things. Another Audi. See, this is a very rich neighborhood I live in, but I am not rich, so it's very bizarre. Is it wrong that I'm jealous of all the people who live here? So everyone I'm seeing taking a walk, I'm just imagining their lives. It's like, oh, they're just spending a leisurely morning taking a walk, enjoying the neighborhood. Then they're going to work on the screenplay they're writing together because they're so in love they can actually write a screenplay together. That's how you know you love someone. When you can write a screenplay with that person. Can you write a screenplay with your loved one? Can you write a screenplay about a struggling urologist with your loved one? And can the screenplay be called Shlomo's Dance, about a struggling urologist who encounters a magical pair of testicles, who give him 3 wishes. And of course, he makes the classic mistake of wishing for wealth and power, but in the end, all he really wants is a hug from his young son. I think, and I think there needs to be a scene where he's talking with the testicles. The testicles are talking back, but it's a different voice. The voice, the voice of the testicles are different than the voice of the person on whom the testicles are attached. So there's just this scene with the testicles saying, I think you learned a lesson here. You can wish for power and wealth, but isn't it more important that you be with your young son? The doctor says, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I should have known this from the beginning. This is the hole that I need filled in my heart. And then the person on whom the testicles are attached to said, excuse me, is this a terminal condition? I mean, they can talk. My balls can talk. This is very concerning. I came here because I have talking balls, and I'm listen. I appreciate that my balls are helping you find peace with your son here, but at some point, can we discuss what we need to do to? Because they don't stop talking. When I'm home alone, they're not even talking to me. We haven't been on speaking terms in years. But they talk to themselves. They talk to themselves when I'm trying to sleep. When I'm trying to sleep, my balls are talking to themselves, and they're saying very unkind things about me. It's great that my balls are being so nice to you. They're not like that to me. They treat me terribly. Maybe I need a ball therapist. And that right there is the spin-off screenplay, Ball Therapist. By the way, I almost stepped in the exact same poo that I stepped in at the beginning of this walk. I artfully avoided it as I was riffing on my ball genie. So which should the voice of the ball genie be? I don't want to do anything Aladdin related. I feel like, you know what? I feel like it would be great. I'm not saying we have the technology yet, but it would be great if if the voice of the enchanted testicles. Ooh, there's a bird I don't know what that bird is, but it's making a racket. I don't know what that bird is saying. Either I want to kill you or I want to sleep with you. Or maybe the bird is having post-ejaculatory pain as well. The bird's going, I don't know, should I see somebody? Maybe I should see somebody. Asking the nearby crow, do you know a good urologist? Are there urologists for birds? Any recommendations? I wonder if the owl in Bambi ever had to field those kinds of questions. Because he kind of was the one tasked with sort of explaining the birds and the bees. I'm beginning to think, by the way, I'm looking around me, I'm seeing all the people walking around, walking their dogs. I'm beginning to think that none of these people actually live in this neighborhood. It's just a nice neighborhood that they come and walk around in. They probably live in the tiny apartments over next to the neighborhood. So maybe I should, this is what I do to feel better about myself. The more that I can soak up the suffering of others, that's a good morning walk as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, circling back, I don't think there are bird urologists. No, circling back, to the owl in Bambi, who explained to the other animals about being Twitter-pated. This is the birds and the bees conversation that the owl is explaining to the other animals in Bambi. I'm wondering if that owl also has to field other medical questions. Listen, owl, take a look at this thing on my neck. You think it's a problem? And the owl's like, I only know about Twitter-pated stuff. I'm not a specialist. You'll need to see a specialist, owl. And he's in the neighboring forest. I gotta schlep all the way to the neighboring forest. Well, you can, or you can chance it. Your call, man. I think in the first 25 minutes of this podcast, we have covered a lot of very important things. But here's what I wanted to get back to: who should do the voice of the enchanted testicles? And I think, by the way, I'm trying to get to the point where I don't care if other people are listening to me do this while I'm walking. So I'm going to say testicle as loud as I need to say it for you to understand it. And if they hear it, they hear it. What's wrong? It's a creation of nature. But I think the enchanted testicles, actually, here's another pertinent question. Should the testicles be one voice or two? Because technically there's two of them. And a lot of fun might be had. Maybe they're twins. No, that's just not artistically where I'm feeling like I'm being led. I think it's got to be one voice. One voice, two balls. I think that's a religious concept. One voice, two balls. And that's the tagline for the movie. One voice, two balls. No, it should be two balls, one voice. There we go. That's better. Two balls, one voice. Although that feels more like a movie about singing testicles. But at any rate, the point I'm trying to make here, that I've been trying to get to, and I keep getting distracted by myself, is that the voice of the testicles in this movie about the testicle genie that helps Shlomo reconnect with his son, I think the voice should be Marlon Brando. I know he's not alive, and I know there's a lot of debate over should we be using the likeness of dead actors. But I think that would be perfect. That would be the perfect voice. Walking around, I think this is a terrible I want to warn you, this is a terrible, terrible Marlon Brando impression. This is not going to be a good Marlon Brando impression at all. I think you need to talk to your son. I am testicles. Enchanted testicles. I have been on this earth now 6,000, 7,000 years. Look at the flowers. Aren't they beautiful? I don't know why that's part of my Marlon Brando impression, but I do feel like at any point in a movie, and I don't mean to disparage Brando's work. His work is phenomenal. But I do feel like at any point in any movie, he could stop and go, yeah, look at the flowers. Aren't they beautiful? But that would be the voice of the testicles. Marlon Brando. I think that's some good casting. Shlomo, there's a lot of different options with Shlomo. I mean, I think the classical way to go. I mean, it could be Billy Crystal. It could be, I think John Hamm would be kind of a different offbeat choice. Because a guy like Shlomo, you'd expect Billy Crystal. And Billy Crystal would play the role wonderfully. But John Hamm, I think he'd give an interesting spin on it. Man, we are accomplishing so much with this. So much. But I now feel like I need to transition away from this incredibly, incredibly Like, you need to understand something. That I'm sitting there, I'll be sitting there and I'm trying to write stuff. And I keep saying to myself, you got to play to the top of your intelligence, Josh. You've got to write smarter material. And I have now spent the better part of a half hour coming up with a story about enchanted testicle genie. Although my favorite part is still the guy who, the guy who the testicles are attached to wants no part in any of this. I just want to live a normal life, but he won't be quiet. Granted, he sounds like Marlon Brando and he's giving a great performance, but it's just, I mean, day and night with this guy. So here's the thing that's happening now. I'm not wearing my mask while I'm walking. I'm trying to avoid people. And so I keep having to cross the street back and forth. And I'm getting annoyed with them. They're not doing anything wrong, but I'm annoyed that they exist. These are my streets. I think this is a big thing that's starting to happen as it gets crowded, as more and more people are around. And then there's this guy starting a truck. And I'm like, can't you see that I'm podcasting? And now this truck has got to come by? And now he's backing up. So now we get that sound, the sound of the truck backing up. Like, in my mind, I'm like, he knows I'm podcasting. He knows I'm podcasting. And he's doing this he doesn't want me to succeed in life. He's conspiring against me. Oh, this brings back memory. Conspiring against me. In high school, I didn't get into my advanced acting class. And then I was complaining about it. And I guess the teacher heard that I was complaining about it and said, if Josh wants to think there's a conspiracy against him, he can. That was her take on me complaining about how I feel like I never get cast. And that's because no, she cast me in the musical before that, but she didn't put me in the advanced acting class. And she said, there's no conspiracy against me. And I feel like the person who says that is the person who's running the conspiracy. Or I'm paranoid. If you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however unlikely, must be the truth. That's a Sherlock Holmes quote. I wrote this as a sketch once, but I wanted to see a story where Sherlock Holmes looks at the evidence, talks to the witness, and then turns to Watson and says, I have no idea. I am stumped. My brain is not functional. I have no clue who did this. There's just not enough evidence. But I thought you used deductive reasoning, Mr. Holmes. I do, but I mean, whoever did this was really friggin' good. They must have been wearing gloves and something, but no idea. No idea. In any mystery, like any one of those shows, any one of these mystery shows, that'd be great. Halfway through, the guy's like, I give up. Let's have a beer. Is this what my life is? Solving crimes. There's nothing more. If only there were enchanted testicles that could teach me how to live. No. Teach me how to love. Yes, Josh. Play to the top of your intelligence by talking about prostatitis addled testicles. Fantastic. Truly fantastic. All right. Well, what else is going on? I hope the audio on this is good. We're capturing some world-changing things here. How many times have I gone around the block? I think this is only the third time I've gone around the block. Oh, God. Am I sure this is the third time? This could be the fourth time. I don't think it is. I think it's the third time. I think it's only the third time. But the advantage of recording this podcast while walking is that if I do about an hour, that means about 4 laps. I think that's about 5 miles. So not only am I creating world-changing content. See, he drove by me, that car drove by me because he knew I was podcasting. What is up with that? What's your problem, man? Driving an Infiniti. I remember the year that the Infiniti and the Lexus, they debuted both of those cars on the same year. And I remember that because my grandparents were buying a new car, and they were trying to choose between the Infiniti and the Lexus, and they went with the Lexus. Excuse me. And the Lexus was and they were both great cars. And I want you to think that they were super rich because those are expensive cars. But they, I guess, did well enough to get a Lexus and an Audi. I think if I had to choose, I got to drive those two cars when I got older, and I worked for them one day a week, and eventually I ended up driving both of the cars. And I actually think, as I recall, the Audi, I think it was a tighter drive. It was, by the way, when I say tighter ride, it rides tight. All that really translates to for me is it was harder for me to turn the steering wheel. That's how powerful the car was. It was a car that you didn't drive. I don't drive that car. It's a car that I wield like a mighty sword. Okay, here's something to be paranoid about. I mentioned the Audi as I was walking by this house. I'm now walking by the house again as I'm doing my lap around the block. The Audi is now parked further into the house. And immediately my head went, what if he heard me talking about the Audi, got a little paranoid, and drove his car closer to the house because he was afraid I might try something. Because I have that look about me, of course. I look like I could so be part of the crew that Nicolas Cage was part of in Gone in 60 Seconds. I was about to reference a different movie. I was about to reference the Fast and the Furious movies, but I was afraid to say that because my obsessive compulsive kicked in, and I thought, well, because Paul Walker died tragically, if I mention Fast and the Furious, if I say it out loud, it increases the chances that I may die horribly in a car crash. That's how my brain works. That's how my obsessive compulsive disorder works. That entire mathematical thing, I'm not going to call it mathematics, that's an insult to mathematics. That entire weird psychological thing was going on in my mind nearly instantaneously. Don't say Fast and the Furious, it's bad luck, because Paul Walker died. Say God in 60 Seconds, the movie that did not spurn 10 sequels. That's the one that's better luck, Josh. Oh. All right, I think if we do one more lap, that'll get us to the 50 minutes, the glorious 50 minutes. Walking by one of those PT Cruisers. Remember those, the PT Cruisers that meant to be kind of a throwback to a bygone era. This is something I've talked about before, but what it reminds me of is the fact that I grew up early childhood in the 80's, teenage years in the 90s, but early childhood in the 80s. So there are things, so the 80s for me is very nostalgic, which I find to be so strange because as decades go, I don't know, the more I read about it from a historical perspective, the more it depresses me. Maybe every decade is like that. Maybe I'm overly romanticizing the 60s. But the 60s, just, there seemed to be much more of a, you think hippies, I think hippies, I think, the counterculture movement, it's all these revolutions, whereas the 80s, I mean, Back to the Future might have been the best thing about the 80s. Is that too much of an exaggeration for me to say that? Was anything else that good, really? Were there major, there had to be something better than Back to the Future. I can't think of anything. Oh, Star Trek 2. Yeah, okay. Star Trek 2 and Back to the Future. That was the 1980s. And Wall Street going insane. But there are things that I see that are, 80s that give me fond memories. And one of them is, like in all these 80s cop movies, they always drove the same kind of car. It was I think it was the Chevrolet Caprice, this 1980s model that always, every cop in every 80s movie drove that car. Actually, more specifically, it was never the lead character because they always, drove like a Camaro or something cool. It was the cops who were the supporting characters who either needed the help of the main character or was somehow getting in the way of the main character. Drove that Chevrolet Caprice. And that's how they should have made the commercial for Chevrolet Caprice. Chevrolet Caprice. Use this car to help your protagonist achieve his objective, probably at the cost of your own life. Chevrolet Caprice. Chevrolet Caprice. This car is good enough for you to drive in and say things like, the crime lab doesn't know. All right, Dirty Harry, the crime lab doesn't have evidence. You can't go in there unless you have evidence from the crime lab. All right? I'm going to get back in my Chevrolet Caprice and drive out of this movie right now. Chevrolet Caprice, the car of choice for frustrated chiefs of police in 1980s movies. Hi, I'm a frustrated chief. After a long day of getting my two rebel cops who get the job done but cause a lot of property damage into my office and screaming at them, I like a nice smooth drive home. And that's why I drive the Chevrolet Caprice. Chevrolet Caprice. It's a vaguely French name for a distinctly American car. Chevrolet Caprice. Because Riggs and Murtaugh just won't listen to me. So whenever I see that car, I have fond memories of the 80s. Maybe that's my new fake sponsor, Chevrolet Caprice. 1980s Chevrolet Caprice. Quick, I need to get the other side of town so I can prevent that cop who plays by his own rules from punching the sergeant and getting himself booted from the force because he's a good cop and he's the only one who can save this city. I need a car for that. Chevrolet Caprice. Voted character actor's car of choice in 1987. Yes. So I get a lot of nostalgia from that. A lot of nostalgia. We've really went on a journey here. We've gone on a journey from magical testicles to the Chevrolet Caprice. 1980 Chevrolet Caprice. Big difference. In the 90s, I think they stopped using that, I think. I feel like they switched Then they switched to the Fords in the 90s. Something to do with, I know these car companies would have contracts with the police. And for a while it was Chevy and then it was Ford and they kind of switched. When my parents took me to Aspen, by the way, I feel like my grandparents had a Lexus. My parents took me to Aspen. We're not rich people. My parents took me to Aspen in the summer, the off season. And the cop cars in Aspen, the police cars in Aspen, were Saabs. Remember those? Saab 9000s, which were known for being very safe cars. I don't know how fast they were, but they were I think they were in the same league as the Volvos. By the way, that's a movie I want to see. Volvo Cop. That movie just writes itself. Volvo Cop. Chief of police says, "Get in here." Yes, Chief. You're doing everything by the book, and you're doing great work. I got nothing to complain about, frankly. Thank you, Chief. Volvo Cop. Do you think we should call for backup? Yeah, we should call for backup. I'm not going to go in there now without waiting for backup. We call for backup. And if the bad guys get away, they get away. But there's no loss of life or property. So totally, call for backup. Our seats are heated in this Volvo. So we can just wait in relative comfort and luxury. Volvo Cop. I'm not going to say anything until I talk to my lawyer. All right, I'll call him right now. Because you are entitled to have an attorney present. What's his number? I'm sorry, what's his or her number? I don't mean to be sexist, I apologize. I need to go issue an apology for not saying his or her. I try so hard to get better, because I really do get better. I don't want this to be a thing anymore. Like I have to coach myself on getting rid of patriarchy in my language. Assuming it's a his. Like that is a legitimate problem. And I know it might feel like I'm making fun of that problem in what is kind of a loosely sketched out sketch in a podcast. But I'm taking a moment within the sketch to say, without irony, that is a problem. And I don't want to be the guy who's just, oh, well, I'm old and this is how I talk. Blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to just give me the number of the attorney, and I will call his, her, them. So here's what just happened. I'm doing that riff, and that I literally thought, oh God, I said his, not hers, or not his or hers. And I genuinely felt guilty. And then I thought to myself, well, I don't want to offend anybody. Do I have to start the podcast all over? Do I have to do another 1 hour walk? Do I have to step in more poo? And I felt genuinely bad. So I thought, okay, I'll just put that into what I'm saying and apologize. I feel like every single podcast I've recorded has ended with me apologizing for saying something that I'm like, oh my God, this is going to offend people. Which is probably the exact opposite brain that is needed for comedy. Perfect. And we're at 49 minutes. I did the 4 laps. That happened. I did the 4 laps, and I don't think it's 8:13 right now. I imagine it's about 9 a.m. which is, that would make sense, given this was a 15-minute podcast / walk. I don't know why. I want to say I do a 1-hour podcast, but only do 50 minutes. I don't know what that's about. I mean, I can keep going. Now it's 50 minutes and 7 seconds. And I have to get back to my place, get my briefcase. I have a briefcase now, which is kind of cool. Because my dad always had a briefcase. I don't have a job, I think, that warrants needing a briefcase. But no one has to know that. I'm walking down the street, I got my briefcase. Let them think I'm an attorney. They don't know that inside of that briefcase is a dream journal. They don't need to know that. Let them assume I'm going to try a really important court case, as opposed to writing my daily affirmations. Let them assume that. I'm walking in the mornings now instead of in the afternoons. It's too hot in the afternoons. I always like to end my podcast by sounding like I'm 90. I like to walk in the morning. It's cooler out. Quieter. I can enjoy the songs of the morning routine. The songbirds sing. Watching the people taking their dogs for a walk. Before they get into their non-Chevrolet Caprices and drive to their jobs, where they exist for another day, thinking that they are the center of the universe when they are, in fact, tiny, insignificant pieces of bacteria in a giant universe that is cold and indifferent. Brought to you by the Chevrolet Caprice. Driven by the unimportant characters in movies, so you'll feel right at home. That'd probably be a good place to end it. But I actually don't want to end it. I want to keep going. This may break 55 minutes, maybe. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something, America? Wouldn't that be something? I've killed 2 birds with 1 stone. I did a mild walk, which is kind of exercise. And I did a podcast for an hour in which I talked about my balls, talked about the Chevrolet Caprice, and then found a way to feel guilty about still having this patriarchy male vocabulary. And even as I say it, I still feel guilty about it. I genuinely do feel guilty about it. I genuinely do, because I think that I've been so self-obsessed that I haven't done a good job of, seeing what other people go through. Like, for instance, the opposite sex. So when I see all this stuff happening in Hollywood, the whole time it was happening in my own mind, I was just like, well, I'm not getting cast. And it didn't occur to me that there's this whole other world of horrible things happening. And just the lack of awareness is something that I find very disturbing. And I am genuinely trying to get better at that. And I don't want to diminish that, but at the same time, I do kind of want to end on a joke, but not about that. So I need to come up with another joke. I need to come up with another ending. I need to come up with a better ending. It can't end like this. How do I end this? Now I'm obsessed with how do I come up. It's got to end on a high note. I'm walking by these recycle cans, which I never recycle. I can add that to my feeling of guilt. I never recycle. I should. But then I heard somebody say, oh, well, throw it all in the trash, and the trash company, they go in and they separate everything anyway. And I have no idea if that's true or not. See, now here's the problem. I'm coming back into my apartment, and I know I've stepped in poo, and I've tried to wipe it off, and it looks like most of it's off, but my briefcase is all the way on the other. I'm going to take off my shoes. I don't want to take off my shoes. Why didn't I put the briefcase in the doorway? That's what I've been doing the past 2 days when I've been going on a walk. Why did I not do that this time? What was I thinking? Okay. Now I've got to put the shoes back on. Boy, I love it. This just ended with pure guilt. What I'm feeling guilty about today. Maybe that's the segment that I can end this podcast on. Not recycling. Maybe we can end there. All right. We're good. That's enough.